Hey y'all, welcome to Girl Meets Green. My name's Norma, your host of Whatever, and today we are talking the Ultimatum Season 3. I'm so excited that I had this coming up right after Love is Blind. Thankfully, Tyler and Ashley kept me busy for that little in-between block, so I wasn't gone for long. But anywho, let's jump right into episode 1. So let's introduce the couples. So these are the original couples that came in. We've got Mariah and Caleb. They've been together for 2 years. Mariah's 24, so she's the youngest of the cast. I think everyone else is over 30, except for I think Sandy's 28. But, you know, kind of the higher end of 20s and 30s. Mariah is the one who issued Caleb the ultimatum. She wants to be married. That's what she wants. She wants to be married. She wants to have kids. That's where she's at in life now. Caleb feels like she's too young, and he's kind of like, I don't want her to resent me later because she settled down too fast. So while I understand his side of it, I struggle with the whole age thing of oh, this person's too young or that person's too young. Obviously not illegal activities, and even like early 20s, like a 21-year-old with a 35-year-old feels weird. But then we also have to acknowledge, which is the exception, not the rule, right? Because it's not going to be, it's probably more of a rare occurrence. But it's age isn't the only factor, right? It's what you've gone through in life, what you've experienced, your maturity level, your vibe, if that makes sense. Not every 21-year-old want to be in the club partying, traveling, having a good time, right? Not every 21-year-old wants that. Or examples I always bring up, which like I said, they're few and far between, but a 19, 20-year-old whose parents pass or for whatever reason cannot take care of their siblings, and they are now taking care of their siblings. And it's okay, so are we telling them that they're forced to only date 21-year-olds who are in the club or in college having the 21-year-old experience, the traditional 21-year-old experience? We're telling them they can only date those people who won't understand what they're going through, probably won't be any help or support. Obviously someone in that situation is probably going to go for somebody older because at the end of the day, their life has been altered. There's no living as a 21-year-old anymore. Sure, they could have a 21-year-old's night out, right? And someone watches the kids so they can go be 21, but that's just not realistic for their life. And so, yeah, it's, I think about circumstances like that where it's someone's just mature. Someone isn't for that, they're looking for something else in life. And I think that's Mariah. That's the impression I've gotten of her so far in these 5 episodes. Preface by saying, yes, I'm here to give my opinions, okay, on these relationships. But it's when I get my friends' advice, I'm always I'm going to give you my opinion, but at the end of the day, you have to make that choice. Especially in relationships, right? Because you got to sleep with or without that person. You got to live with or without that person. So no one else should be making that choice for you. And if you are frustrated with a friend who's in a bad relationship or a negative relationship, they have to come to that realization on their own. It doesn't matter what you say to them. They have to be there themselves. But yeah, all that to say, it's yeah, I'm giving my opinion, but I also understand that we can't really say someone should do this or that because we are not them. So it's easy to say, yeah, Mariah's young, he's right, what? When it's honestly, Caleb should probably just let her go, because whether he agrees with it or not, that's what she wants, and she is an adult. She's 24, and if that's what she's saying she wants, that's what she wants. It's not his place or any of our places to tell her that's not what she wants or that she's not ready for that. That's her decision to make. And so if you're not ready to make that decision with her, let her be. And she says it at the dinner when she's I kind of feel we're 2 years in. If you're not sure, I'm kind of wasting my time, which I think is accurate, which is most of these people, honestly. Do not give ultimatums in real life. You're going to wonder for the rest of your life if you have that life because of that ultimatum. Next up, we've got Zaina and JR, and I'm not gonna lie, I saw this TikTok and it made me start thinking, because I felt they were both way too excited to do the dating other people part of this. Neither of them seemed at all even a little bit sad or jealous or concerned. They weren't even looking for each other, right? Everybody else throughout the dating part is oh, I can't stop looking at my partner, or going and having conversations with their original partner. And those two are just like over there, feely, touchy, like just, we'll get into that, but like they are not concerned with each other. And so some theories are that they were never like an actual couple, like they were never actually in love, which I doubt. And I think someone said JR showed photos of them like young, like from all the years of their relationship. So I think they were, but I'm more inclined to believe the theory that they like broke up sometime before the show and then decided to go on the show anyways. Like maybe they got picked and were like, well, let's do it. It'll be fun. They don't give me happy people with a person, you know, like for Zaina being the one that like gave the ultimatum and is like, I want to be married. Like, I don't understand giving an ultimatum and you're comfortable with someone else possibly being your husband, if that makes sense. Like, she's kind of like, hey, if I meet someone, I meet someone. Like, you know, like if it's not him, it's not him. And if that's the case, you don't need an ultimatum. You just need to end the relationship. Like, why would you want to get married and you're like okay with other options, if that makes sense? Like, oh, I want to marry this person, but if it's not them, it's okay. Okay, then that's not who you want to marry. Next up, Aria and Scotty, and they've been together 3 years. I also forgot to mention Zaina and JR had been together 3 years. Scotty is giving Aria the ultimatum, and I'm not going to say much here because we're going to get into them. They are long distance. They live in different parts of California that are like, has to be a plane right away because, you know, it's a big state. And so, yeah, she has her dream career. She's just not like in marriage phase of life right now, which again, similar to Caleb and Mariah, it's like, y'all just got to break up. Like, Scotty needs to let her go so she can fully enjoy that experience, because it's clear she right now kind of wants more of her focus like on her career and doing those things. And you can be in a relationship in that, but you have to have a partner who supports that and gets that. And Scotty does not at all. Like I said, we'll get into it, but that's where we're at right now with these two. Next up, Sandy and Nick. And Nick is a little bit of a weirdo. Okay, I think he's 38 and she's 28. They're 10 years apart, I know that. They live in LA. He wants to settle down, you know, countryside, like do the whole settling down thing. She's not ready for that. She's like, he's been in LA 15 years. I haven't. Like, I'm still trying to enjoy that. He says something about like she's Coachella and I'm Stagecoach, which is funny, but also it's like, well, then y'all don't need to be together. Like, somebody is gonna be getting the short end of the stick here. You're gonna have to be either out partying with her or just like waiting at home for her, or she's gonna have to like give up the life she wants to live, and that's not fair to anyone. So yeah, Nick is giving the ultimatum, by the way. I don't know if I said that. Then we have Vanessa and Dave. Dave is pretty bland, pretty vanilla. Vanessa, she seems really quirky and fun, but it becomes clear that her light is kind of dimmed by Dave. She's giving him the ultimatum because she feels like he said he wants to marry her, but he doesn't like want to speak on it, or like doesn't have any sort of like, hey, this is happening soon. Like, there's no conversation about it outside of him telling her he does want to marry her. Last but not least, Chanel and Micah, who don't even get introduced. I looked through twice, and I must have missed them if they did, but they do not get introduced. So we don't know how long they've been together. However, later on, throughout the episode or episodes, we find out that it was Chanel who gave him the ultimatum. She's just ready to get married. She's got the career she wants, and she wants to move on to the next step. Micah asks Aria, like, what makes her feel like she's ready to be a wife. She starts crying about that, which makes sense, because she's just like, how have I not proven that to you? Like, how have you not seen that in me? Like, it basically makes her sad that he has to ask her that he hasn't seen that in her. She's like, I've been there for you through so many things. She doesn't say what things, but it's clear he knows what she's talking about. And he's like, oh, you can't say that because I've been through with you. Like, when I got out of work, I was Ubering with you back when you were Ubering, because now she has like her dream career in marketing or something. But like, he takes offense, like she's trying to say that he's not reciprocating, but what she was saying was, these are all the things I've done that I would think would make you see I'm ready to be a wife, if that makes sense. I don't think it was a tit for tat like you're not doing, which she says when he does that. So we get into the dating. I think it goes on for a week. They start off at a pool party, of course. Mariah is really emotional, which made me so sad, because you could tell she was really going through it, but you could tell she felt like this experiment would really pull some answers out for them, which I thought was so interesting, because to me, I'm like, this experience is whack. Like, why do people do this shit? We like watching it, but like, why the fuck would you do it? But I will say that for her and Caleb, something along these lines would be good, because it like allows them that space to like figure out their own answers, if that makes sense. Because like, she does mention that she understands where he's coming from, and she's basically kind of like, maybe this experience will get him to the place I want him, but also will give me the opportunity to explore a little bit about what he's seeing and me not being ready, or like me trying to move too fast. You know, like, she's open to learning and like seeing his point of view. So the next thing, it's like a mingling night in a club or something. They play quarters, which is basically like someone whispers a question in someone's ear. The person who got the question whispered to them flips a quarter. If it's heads, they have to answer the question out loud. Vanessa asks Aria who she had the least chemistry with. She says Dave, which is hilarious because she's Dave's number one. And then we have Nick asking Caleb who he would spend the night with. He says Aria. Someone asks JR, I like lose track of who's asking what, but someone asks JR who he would want like least dating his ex, and he points at Nick, but he's like, that guy. And then he's like, my name is Nick. He's like, I know your Nick, I know your name, it was a joke. It was a weird tense moment for no reason, other than I think because JR is at this point bonding with Sandy. But obviously with editing, we don't know like what order, but with that tension, it's clear that what we see after this is probably what they were seeing. And lastly, Vanessa asks Nick who he finds most intimidating, and he says her. Dave and Nick are like slowly breaking down. They are not handling watching their partners talk to someone else well. JR and Sandy are canoodling, okay? We got hands on shoulders, on legs, we're scooting closer. Like, it's just too much. I get that, like, okay, everyone's broken up now, but like, be real. Like, be real. To be doing this in front of each other is crazy work. That being said, then we get Aria crying because Scotty and Zaina are essentially doing the same thing. They're like holding hands and stuff. And so she walks over to them. She's talking to Scotty because she's like, that's so disrespectful. You're like holding her hand. And he's like, I'm not disrespecting you anyway. And then he gets all rowdy and loud with her, which is freaking weird. I don't know. It made it clear that it's a normal occurrence. Him doing that on camera with no hesitation and her response to it makes it clear how often it happens. And I have to say this, like, I know we're used to like only looking at abuse as physical, but we all need to get very familiar with like verbal, mental, all the non-violent versions of it, because sometimes we are like full on being verbally abused, mentally abused, and don't see it because it's like, well, no, I'm not being hit, or like it's like scary to label something that, right? Especially if you love a person or care for a person. But I firmly believe that is what is happening with her and Scotty. We'll get more into that. But yeah, she's crying, he's screaming at her, she's telling him to stop screaming at her or getting loud with her. He doesn't, and so she walks away. Episode 2, we haven't been together again, and everybody's playing Never Have I Ever. It's a typical Never Have I Ever game. There's not really any like super spicy questions or like something that comes out that's interesting. It's the typical like, you know, who would you sleep with? Like, have you had a threesome? Like, stuff like that. Now we're at dinner and we're picking new partners. So let's introduce our new couples. We've got JR and Sandy, Caleb and Aria. I'm trying to do this off memory. Nick and Vanessa, which is kind of funny. Nick and Vanessa, the hosts. Mariah and Micah, Sandy and JR, Scotty and Zaina. That's everybody, right? Dave and Chanel. Ooh, who did I say twice? I must have said somebody twice. Okay, we got JR and Sandy, Micah and Mariah, Scotty and Zaina, Dave and Chanel, Caleb and Aria, and Nick and Vanessa. Not the host. This picking of the couples goes through to the beginning of episode 3, just so you know. It's just, again, to me, it was nothing special. There were people crying and being like, you know, take care of my partner, or the biggest thing I would like to know was that Nick called out what I feel like everyone was thinking, that like Sandy and JR, it was purely just like a physical wanting connection. Yeah, they're here for hall passes. I'm sorry. They will not be able to convince me that anyone's getting deep or that anyone's seeing someone for more than everybody else sees them. That's just shit they rehearsed to be able to like not have guilt in just wanting to be physical with each other. So I believe the like first half-ish of this episode is a continuation of picking, and then it's like a little kind of nightcap situation. It's like each couple talking about like what it'll be like living together, like what do you like to do, stuff like that. Things to note, Micah and Mariah are super robotic with it. It's just kind of awkward, but I think it's because they both care for their partners. I don't think that either of them is here like, oh, I'm interested to talk to someone else. It's just more of like a going through the motions of the experiment. The end half of this episode shows us like night 3, I believe. Micah is like texting Chanel, and then Chanel tells Dave like, hey, is it okay if I go get some air? And he's like, yeah. And you can tell he's nervous to like let her go outside by herself, but he's like, okay, obviously she needs it. So yeah, it's not, they don't show them, it's not specified, but it's like clear that like Chanel and Micah were going to see each other. We then have like a next morning scene of all of them, kind of just like their mornings together as a new couple. The only thing to note here, in my opinion, is Nick like slightly crashing out because he saw Vanessa at Starbucks Sandy, and Sandy told him that her and JR kissed, and they did more than that. Y'all, I don't care what they did more, and then was like, we're never talking about this. They did not only kiss. There's absolutely no way. I'm sorry. There's no way. Moving in episode 4, we have Sandy addressing the conversation with Nick and just being annoyed at his reaction to finding out. She lets JR know, like, I didn't want to lie now and then later say, like, oh, actually, we kissed. So I just said it now. JR's like, oh, yeah, that's going to be weird, yada, yada. And I don't know if he was trying to hide it from Zaina or everyone. Like, I don't know, because he was like, oh, yeah, that's going to make things weird. We have our big shocker of this episode, which is that Dave and Vanessa and Micah and Chanel have left the experiment. They left in the evening, like not telling anyone anything. They met up in secret and then decided to leave. We see like Dave turning the camera away from him, the rest of them kind of like noticing a camera and like just packing and getting their shit and being out. So that leaves Nick by himself and Mariah by herself. And poor Mariah. I hope, because she's like, oh, I just saw that his stuff was gone and a book he lent me was gone. I did see on social media that Vanessa claims she did tell Nick that she would be leaving. I'm curious if Micah also told Mariah or he just left. I can't picture Mariah lying, like producers saying, oh, you should say this, and she's like, okay, you know, like I feel like she would have been like, no, like I'm gonna say talk to me or something. But yeah, they left without a word. They're gone. So now Mariah and Nick are by themselves. They decide to stay by themselves. Mariah's kind of like, you know, yeah, I just kind of want to. She's just like exploring that time by herself. She's like, I haven't been by myself in a while, which was, I believe, one of the things Caleb was concerned about was like codependency. So I thought it was really cool to see her like thrive in the aloneness. I would have loved to hear like more about it from her. Throughout these episodes, we get little glimpses of what she's doing. Like she's like riding a bike or like working out. We see her like eating like food she cooks for herself. But I would have loved to see those moments with maybe her like confessionals being like, oh, this is like, you know, what day 4 was like or whatever. Just kind of like a little small overview glimpse into what she was going through, because I'm really interested in like that piece of her journey. So I hope we get to hear about it, whether it's like in the reunion or her herself. Scotty is overkill. I forgot to mention that earlier, but like he's like, Zaina is the epitome of a wife, yada yada, and he'd only like talk to her for a little bit. Like he barely knows this woman to be able to be like epitome of a wife. And then like obviously everyone's gonna put their best foot forward, right? She's cooking breakfast, she's buying meals and plating it for them to eat. Caleb is such a sweetie. I also forgot to mention this, but when Aria was crying about the situation with Zaina and Scotty, before she confronts Scotty, she like goes to the bathroom crying, and he kind of like goes in and he's like, are you okay? Do you just need a minute? Like, can I give you a hug? And she's like, yeah, I'll take a hug. Like, he's just, so what do you need is what he says. And oh, the perfection in a man who knows how to like address a woman when maybe they don't know what to do, right? Because most guys are like, I'm just gonna avoid that shit. But he went over and was like, you okay? Do you just need a minute? Like, what do you need? We see a lot of Caleb being a sweetie. Poor Caleb, my goodness. When him and Arya match up that night, it's like more of Arya crying about Scotty. And he's just so sweet about it. He like goes and gets toilet paper to give her like tissue. We have another scene where he brings a little spa kit with like a foot massager thing for them to do a little spa night moment. And it's really sweet. And it seemed he's really trying to like open Arya up and like for her to see the full picture. I kind of feel like he is like trying to save her, like trying to be like, just so you know, this is how you should be treated, or like this is how you should be feeling, like. And he says he has so much knowledge. Like he says things like at one point she was talking about how like Scotty doesn't like the way she thanks him, if that makes sense. Like she's like, I'll be appreciative of things, but he doesn't feel like it's enough, or it's like it's not the way he wanted me to say thank you, or he wanted me to show my appreciation. And Caleb was like, that's not your job. Like, it's not your job to make him feel like what he's doing is the right thing. And that is so valid for guys, for girls, for anyone. It's like, it is not our job to be like, thank you so much. Like, for you to know that that's what you should be doing for your partner. Like, that should come from you, regardless of thank yous or not. Now, what you can realize is like, yeah, this partner doesn't appreciate this at all. And not, oh, they're not appreciating it in the way I wanted them to. We see JR and Sandy doing their thing, physical touch, all of that good stuff, fun stuff, I guess, for them. We see a conversation between them of Sandy kind of being like, you kind of have to, like telling him he has to be less, essentially selfish, and more of like how I'll cohabitate with like a partner. Because one of the things she says is like doing our laundry together, like there's no need to do separate. The what's mine is yours type of thing, you know, like we are a partnership, let's act like it, let's together mesh some things. They do talk about his eating and him being like, how would you feel if I brought a scale to dinner? And she was like, no. And he was like, I need someone who understands that. And it's like, no, you don't. Like, do you, and let them do them, boo. I feel like Sandy and JR are just like working overtime to make their relationship seem deeper than it is, and it's just simply not. If you have to continue to say like, we're getting so deep, like this person is opening up so much, it's not happening. Like no one who is that is actually happening feels the need to state it. Last thing noteworthy in this episode is Scotty and Zaina like go to play basketball. And she asks him, like, is there anything in your life that you would do over or something if you could? And he talks about his dad and, you know, like loving his dad. And he got in trouble for something. His dad was trying to lecture him. He wasn't trying to hear it. And then that night he was going to the gym. His dad said he loves him. He didn't say it back. And the next morning his dad had passed away. I can't imagine how difficult that is. For someone you love, for you to be like just upset with them and then they're gone. And so your last like moment with them was like being upset or like not saying something. So that definitely sounds very difficult to deal with. And now we're on episode 5. Man, I kind of flew through these episodes, but to me, you know, it's like just little noteworthy things. The rest of it is really just the typical like experience of this show and what happens in like, you know, chronological order, I guess. Episode 5, we see episode 5, JR and Sandy are talking more. It's really surface level though, if you ask me. Like he does talk about, he states his wife cheated. I don't know that I believe that, if I'm being honest, but like we gotta go based off what he said, I guess. So his ex-wife was the cheater. But he kind of talks about that, and that being why he struggles getting deeper, like connecting deeper in relationships. Then they do have another conversation where Sandy asks like, oh, would you post your wife? Because like, if I'm your wife, I want to be posted, essentially is what she says. And he's like, I think the woman can, I don't think the man should have to. Like, and then it cracked me up because he was talking about how Zaina is like super jealous of his DMs, and that's probably freaking why, because you out here acting single. Zaina takes Scotty to meet her friends. Her and Scotty make it clear that like they actually like each other and that neither of them really knows what they would do, because they both issued the ultimatum. And so her friend is like, if tomorrow your partner, she has each of them, if tomorrow your partner proposed or like said they want to get married, and they both are basically like, I'd say no, because like I don't know right now. And her friends are kind of like, we like JR. And she's like, well, he might not be here. Sandy introduces JR to her mom and her family, like her mom and sisters, I guess. If I'm remembering correctly, I don't think Nick has met them yet. And so we can imagine how that went over with him. But she introduces JR. Her family doesn't seem to like Nick at all. One of her sisters says something about like finally someone who isn't holding you back or like holding you down or like not doing enough for you, something along those lines. And then we see Nick fully crashing out. This man is crashing out. He's like boohoo crying, making noises, like on his couch, just like dying an emotional death. He knocks on their door. She's like hiding, laughing. Sandy not hiding, but like JR is opening the door. He's like, oh, you're embarrassing yourself. Like, just go, dude, just go. And while he is not, like, Nick is fully in the wrong, I also feel like I don't think Sandy is handling his emotions well, because he's also kind of been like seeing them on dates or like being in certain places where he could look into their apartment, like, and I don't know if he was looking in or he just kind of caught a glimpse. But if he was looking in, then yeah, that's messed up and she doesn't owe him anything. But I'm also kind of like, this is your original partner. His like experiment partner left, so he's like by himself, just having to see you guys and like deal with things by himself. And it didn't really seem like she was being like empathetic of that, or sympathetic, I guess you should say. And she was like blocking him or like ignoring calls or not texting back. And like, it was just like, don't you love this person? Like, why don't you could sit down and have a conversation with him to be like, listen, I want to follow through with the experiment. I know it's difficult for you that you're by yourself, but like, I'm going to continue this part of the process with JR. And then you and I will come back together and we'll get to like go from there and deal with it there. Just pause, like be patient, like we will be back together for the second half of this experiment or something. And I don't think she's done that. She's just been like laughing at him or like, you know, like, oh yeah, I'm blocking him, like I blocked him now, like stuff like that. And it's just weird and kind of foul. We move to Scotty and Zaina. Zaina's talking about how she wants to clean the closet, and she's like, maybe that could be a group activity, aka like him helping her with the closet. He goes, I think we should just get out of the apartment, right? Then this man goes, how about a hot air balloon ride? She's like, heights? Absolutely not. That's anxiety for me. Like, that is an anxiety attack waiting to happen. Okay. What about cryotherapy? She's like, not really a fan of being cold. Like, definitely not my idea of a fun time, right? And then he's like, I mean, you could just say you don't want to hang out. Like, you could just say you don't want to go out with me. She's like, girl, what? Like, she's like, wait, whoa, what's going on? And she's like, it's not an attack on you. It's that I don't like those activities. But what cracks me up is that his reaction, you would have thought that he was like, oh, do you want to go to the movies? Do you want to go to dinner? Like, sir, your suggestions were hot air balloon and cryotherapy. I think you could have at least tried one more. To see if you could, before you like flip out. But like, he fully flips out, and then he's like, yeah, I just don't deal with rejection well. And she's like, that felt like rejection to you? And he's like, yeah. She's like, because no, it was just like activities that I don't like. That wasn't me saying I don't want to go spend time with you. I just don't want to do those activities. And then he like looks and he's like, did you eat without me? And she's like, yeah, because I thought you ate without me. I didn't. Wow, I can't believe my wife wouldn't eat without me. That's crazy. Eating without me, like, he loses it. And she's just like, where are we? What happened? Like, what's going on? He fully loses it. And in that moment, I knew exactly like what his Scotty and Aria situation actually is. And him being like, I want people to see me for the good guy that I am, or like that I do things, whatever, like, and him saying, oh, they don't know how to compromise, because he mentions him and Aria don't know how to compromise, which I think what it means is she won't bend to what he wants. That's what's a compromise to him, which, by the way, it's not, guys. A compromise is meeting in the middle together. It's both people having a little bit of sacrifice and also a little bit of getting what they want somewhere in the middle. That's what a compromise is, not one person bending to the other. You feel me? Unless that person decides that's how they want to compromise. But then her saying to Caleb the whole, like, the way I appreciate him isn't always the way he wants it. And it made me realize exactly what happens, which is basically if she disagrees with him in any way or objects to something he says, she's rejecting him, she doesn't care about him, she doesn't love him, she doesn't want to be with him. And it's like, that's not what's happening here. And it's clear, like, and then hearing how he spoke to her at that club night or whatever, like the volatile situation that she's probably in often, and why she's like, I don't want to marry this man. Mariah and Nick go like do a workout together. So I think the show plans like activities here and there for them to do together. So they're not living together or anything. They're not matched up, but they're doing activities together. And then he basically talks about the fact that like JR went to meet Sandy's mom and how he went over there and kind of crashed out or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I was in the wrong. And I love Mariah for this because she was like, you know, I hope that we're all like understand that we're like old enough to like not be justifying these like crash outs, like these like moments. She's essentially like, dog, you were wrong, and please don't sit here trying to like justify that shit. So now we have a girls' night and a guys' night happening. At the girls' night, or right before we have like security camera footage of Aria and Caleb talking about like how she could tell Mariah about their relationship, because she's like, oh, you know, I want to like, oh, like we're only friends and nothing has happened, but like I do want to mention like an emotional connection. And he's like, yeah, I don't think you should say emotional connection. And then Aria's in her confessional like, oh, he's lying to himself, I don't know why, but he's like lying or trying to hide it, and like I'm not that person. And this is where I'm like, I don't think Caleb is trying to hide anything. I think Caleb knows he's not leaving Mariah for Aria. And while, yes, there has been a connection made, it doesn't like mean anything in the sense of like him leaving or it confusing him when it comes to Mariah. And him and Mariah are both very like emotionally mature people. They're very like emotionally available. Like he understands how she operates, and so he knows what it would mean to her to hear about an emotional connection. And so that's why he's kind of like, I should be the one talking to her, not Aria. Like, I know what that'll do, right? And then you have Aria being like, she knows the truth. Why? Like, why do you care so much? And so then at the girls' night, we get this really weird defending Caleb situation with Aria. I don't know, but she starts like, I know attacking is a bit of a strong word, but she's like going at Mariah. Like, he said that you're insecure, that when he's gone, like you're like blowing up his phone, like you keep calling, you keep communicating. And she's kind of like, you know, that's just how I've always communicated. Was like over communication was like normal to me. And Aria says something like, you know, sometimes when you've been in like toxic relationships and then you get into a healthy one, you become the toxic one. And Mariah's like, I don't think I'm toxic. And then we see exactly what Caleb was worried about, where Mariah's like, it's really scary to think that they have an emotional connection that Caleb and I don't. And it's like, this is why you need to listen to Caleb. Okay, we need to listen to our sweetheart Caleb. Caleb is the sweetheart of the show. We are obsessed with Caleb. We have Sandy talking to Zaina, and she's telling her that like, there is nothing going on with her and JR. They never will be. She is just like helping him grow for her. Like, what are you talking about, ma'am? So we move into the boys' night. Nick shows up. He's talking to JR. He's apologizing. JR's like, oh, I've lost all respect for you. Whoop-de-whoop-de-woo. And, you know, Nick is like, no, I get it. Like, I shouldn't have done that. It's just, you know, this is the person I thought I was going to marry. Like, and I get it. Like, is crashing out okay? No, but I get, like, the core of where the emotions are coming from. And so for JR to be like, my woman and my wife, and I'm going to protect, it's like, shut up. She's not. She's his, for real. Like, let's be really real. But then he does tell JR, like, there have been I miss you texts. There have been communication. I'm not just some crazy person, like, you know, which I thought was interesting. And JR didn't really react to that or say anything. Scotty then, I don't think he asked Caleb, but Caleb at some point says, like, you know, it's just a friendship with me and Aria. Like, there's nothing more than a friendship. And Scotty basically calls him gay. He's like, any straight man would not be attracted to Aria or say that they only want to be friends with her. So like, that's crazy. That's bizarre. Like, ew, Scotty. And I would expect nothing less from Scotty though, as a response. I really wouldn't. But then we have JR attacking Scotty. JR is like, oh, you're sure? Like, people are saying that you're saying that all I want is a hall pass. And Scotty's like, they said that I said it? And he's like, yeah. And Caleb's like, sounds like, I think that person's trying to manipulate you. And he's just like, no, like, I heard it. And yeah, I think it's manipulative. I think it's best. And Scotty's kind of like, what would I get out of that? Like, what would I get out of that? Which, seriously and truly true. I could see someone else doing that because all the other girls are a little bit more hesitant and like wanting their guys. But Zayn don't give a fuck. Like, he do not need to make JR look bad for Zayn to pay him no mind. And JR knows that because they both don't give a fuck. Like, what are you doing? That pretty much wraps us up for these episodes. It's looking rough for everybody. There is some drama. I'm honestly kind of really excited to see Caleb and Mariah come back together. They feel like the only couple that, like, could work. Like, I envision him hearing about her time alone and how she handled it and growing respect for her, and maybe feeling like, you know, understanding, like, okay, she's ready. Like, if she says she's ready, she's ready. But I'm curious to see if he, like, wants to marry her. But then there's the other side of that where he might be like, well, you didn't even get the experiment, so my concerns still stand. I hope you enjoyed this little recap. I'm so excited for the next few episodes next week. Like the video if you enjoyed. Comment down below where you're at. What are you thinking with these couples? Who's gonna get engaged? Who's gonna break up? Is anybody gonna leave their partner for their trial marriage partner? Like, what's the deal? Subscribe for more content like this, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.